Alright guys, so this video is going to be handling a engine code on the Sequioa. So I've been getting this P0420 code for a while. It's a low catalyst efficiency. I first attempted to run a can of CataClean or catalytic converter cleaner stuff through the fuel system, and I thought it worked, but it didn't. So I've actually I'll post a link up in the corner, the outcome of that. But my code came back, same code. And so the next thing to try before replacing the catalytic converter was the oxygen sensor, the rear oxygen sensor. Because basically what's happening is the front oxygen sensor is taking a reading as soon as the exhaust comes out of the engine. Then the rear is checking after the exhaust goes through the catalytic converter, and it's expecting a certain value or certain reading at that point and not getting those readings, and so it throws an engine code. So the next cheapest step to try is replace the O2 sensor. So I'm going to do that, but I've got a slight issue with mine. So let's get into it.
Okay, so here's the oxygen sensor that I need to replace, and you can see it's very rusty. But the nut that holds this one is there. The nut on that stud is completely corroded away, so it's just not existent. But this nut also has enough corrosion that normally this would take a 12mm wrench or socket. It is corroded down, and so it is smaller in size than a 12mm. I can get an 11mm socket over it, but it has no like flat edges anymore, so an 11mm socket just spins on it. So I'm going to try one of these bolt extractors. It's just got some teeth in there, and we'll see if that will get enough grip on it to loosen it. Well, good news. It actually came off. You can see it bit into the edges of the nut there and maybe even deformed it a little bit, but it broke loose and it came off of there relatively easy. I'm pretty satisfied with that. All right guys, so you can see I got the O2 sensor out. This is the replacement. It is a Denso brand O2 sensor. This is the original. I don't know if you can see it there, but it says Toyota, and it is a Denso. Denso makes this for Toyota, but this is the OEM part number there. I didn't look this up OEM just because I know from the auto parts store I can get this. Checking prices locally at O'Reilly or AutoZone or any of the other auto parts stores in my town, this was $107 or something, but you can get the same exact thing on Amazon for like 56 bucks, so save yourself a ton of money. Got linked down in the description. You can see the wire length is just a tad longer, but it's, you know, still going to be fine. This length will fit a wider range of vehicles than this short one from Toyota, but same plug on it. One of these bolt extractors. I used the number 7 out of the Craftsman set. I'll post a link to these down in the description, and this worked surprisingly well. It did take either a 3/4 or a 19mm wrench on this side, or socket. You need to use whatever you had. And then this just went over it, grabbed it, it deformed it a little bit, a couple hard twists on it, and it broke free and came right off there really easy. I was really happy with how well that came out. Now the other one where the nut had corroded off, there was still a little, you know, some remnants of threads left on the stud, and so I needed to run a thread dye over that. And the metric thread dyes that I have are round. They just have like a little keeper for like a set screw and then that slot, but they're round, so I couldn't get a wrench on it. And using the standard style handle for this, handle comes out both sides and it would hit on the other stud, and so I'd have to, you know, do like a half turn and then try to, I was able to put the set screw in the slot and then move it to the little dimple, and I was able to get it going on there. And I got the like remnants of the threads that were left over from the nut, I got those cleaned up, but then I wanted to get the rest of the stud cleaned up just so the new nut would go on without issue. So I ended up making a little setup here that a 24 millimeter 12-point socket fits pretty good over this. And then I took just a little piece of Allen key, and it fits down between the little notch and one of the teeth of, like that. And then I cut just a little spacer to go behind that so that my die was up flush with the edge of the sockets. So there we go, I got my little spacer in there, and then I can just drop this in and it's nice and flush. So then I was able to just use a ratchet and in the tight quarters that was up in there. So I got both of the threads cleaned up. I'm gonna throw the new oxygen sensor in there, and then I think I'm gonna try to use this again just to get the nuts off of the other one, replace those while I've got everything out and handy. Now I also ordered this in preparation. This is just a little tiny nut splitter. So you can get, like, most of your hardware stores or automotive stores will carry a much larger version of this that can split like up to a 7/8 inch nut. The problem is with how this is set up, this heat shield is on there, but that heat shield is on there, so you need something that can fit in between there and the actual oxygen sensor. So this little tiny one, I didn't end up needing it, but I think it was about $9 on Amazon. I have no idea how it would have performed because I did not have to use it, but I will post a link to this down in the description too. So I do know that it would fit in there, and it is just big enough to fit over the actual nut. So if you run into complications and you don't have access to one of these, or you may try this. Or if these end up not working for you, you may need to just split the nut off there. So I'm gonna get this O2 sensor back in, and we'll see if I can get the other nuts off. And these are the replacement nuts that I got. It's just 8 millimeter 125 thread pitch, prevailing torque nuts. So basically these are a lock nut for exhaust. So this is similar to what was on there from the factory. So I'll post a link to these down below too. Okay, so here's the other side. You can hopefully see the corrosion on the nuts there. Okay, so I've got my bolt extractor and my 19 millimeter socket, and I'll just put it on there. Grab my ratchet. So that one is corroded enough that the size I used originally, the number 7, is too large. Let me try this top one. I think I'm going to give it an extension. So there we go, one nut off. Let me get the smaller size, see if I can get the other. Sweet, so that worked. I got both nuts off. I'm not gonna pull this O2 sensor out because I don't have a new gasket for this side. So I'm just gonna throw some new nuts on and call it good. There we go. So get out from under this truck, clean up my tools, and see if that took care of my engine code. All right, so code is cleared. Check engine light is off. I'm at 244.44, and so let's go drive, see what happens. All right, so I've got 44 miles. That 44 miles was several short trips, 5 or 6 different short trips, and my check engine light is still off. So
I'm gonna call that good. I've read quite a few places online that this P0420, especially on Sequoias, is usually a rear O2 sensor and not an actual catalytic converter failure. Mine is, it's not rattling. There's, no physical damage to the catalytic converter. And so I figured 60 bucks would be way cheaper than just throwing a $700 to $1,200 catalytic converter on it. And it seemed to do the trick. So if you're getting a P0420, or I think the other one is a P0421, which is the right side of the passenger side O2 sensor, you may start here. Again, use those links down in the description, save yourself some money. Hopefully these tips will aid you in dealing with any corrosion on the O2 sensor hardware. So if you like what I do, give me a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, leave your questions and comments down below. And until next time, we'll see you later.